welcome everyone. I am so excited to be here with you all. Thank you all for coming out today on your Saturday. We appreciate you all being here. I am Danielle Thornton, Director of Marketing and Communications with the Knowledge House. And we have a very interactive day planned for you all. We'll get a chance to do a nice workshop, we'll eat, and we'll also do focus group discussions centered on internet access and digital equity here in the Bronx. For the official welcome, I am going to kick it over to our Director of Development and External Affairs at the Knowledge House. Her name is Antoinette Gregg. She manages all of our fundraising efforts, and she is our powerhouse at the Knowledge House. So welcome, Antoinette.
Thanks, Danielle. Welcome. I don't think we can say that enough. Thank you so much for coming out to support helping us to get more knowledge on how to support Bronxites in digital equity and infrastructure, things like that. We're so grateful for BronxNet for giving us space, being in partnership with us. We are excited to really start thinking through how to build infrastructure for the Bronx that is going to be equitable for every single person, Black and brown folks across, low-income folks, so that we can build and train folks for a future-facing within tech. So can you hit the slides? So the Knowledge House, just so folks in the room who do not know, we are an organization that supports the training of Black and brown low-income folks into careers in tech. And what that looks like is we have a high school program that supports foundational exploration on how to go into career in tech and or go to college. And for our adult program, we have 4 different tracks that they can learn on in order to go into job placement. So our adults come to us unemployed, and they're making around $14,000 a year, but they leave us with an average of $80,000. So it is our mission to support them into thriving wages, working with places like the BronxNet, like the Bronx Community Foundation, like the Empire State Development, and Connect All to make sure that our students have their best chance at finding the job that they want, and to make sure that the tech sector keeps a diverse pool of talent in mind as it grows and sort of changes the face of what our organization looks like. So I've told you our mission, why we're here today. There's a huge digital divide. What we learned coming out of the pandemic is that the South Bronx has a lot of work to do when it comes to infrastructural change, access to devices, knowledge around sort of digital literacy, things like that. And so as an organization, we always want to make sure that we're able to bring as much knowledge and enough awareness around how we can get every single community member access to digital literacy. Schooling was on the digital, in the digital space. Healthcare was in the digital space. Everything sort of is now a digital company. And so we want to make sure that Bronxites have all of the supports that they need. And we not only do the digital literacy, which we are about to begin starting at the Gigabit Center over at the Andrew Freeman Home, but we're also wanting to make sure that we are working with people who understand that we have to build from the infrastructure level to, sort of like that knowledge level. We need coders who look like us. We need testers of tech who look like us. We need people in the digital media space, in the film space, all of this, who can inform and make sure that we have, all of the supports needed for our community. So we know that the tech organization and the tech sector is very, white male. 60% in New York are white men. And so we make sure that we are disrupting that look and 100% of our, 98% of our fellows are people of color, mostly Black and brown, and more than half are women. And only about 10% of the tech sector writ large are women. So we really try to make sure that we look at the diverse demographics within who we train. So that is what the Knowledge House does, but we hope that for you all, you're able to really just be honest with us about what you see that hasn't been going well in the Bronx, that needs fixing, what you want to see in the Bronx, so that we're able to, work together in a collaborative way to bring all of these supports to our community. So thank you. And so I want to introduce Max Knob. He is the executive director here at BronxNet, and he will talk a little bit more about what this building is.
Thank you. Thank you, Antoinette, and thank you all for being here. Bienvenidos. Welcome to the BronxNet Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx at La Centrale. You're right now in a space that was for decades a vacant lot. And we thank our friends that have partnered with us to make this a site for the public to learn, to engage, to inspire at BronxNet. And we also thank our friends at Knowledge House, the Bronx Community Foundation, the Empire Development Connect All for choosing this location, our Windows on the Bronx studio and the BronxNet Media and Technology Studios, to hold this important forum, Bronx Forward, working towards digital equity and connecting the Bronx to tech. BronxNet is your public service multimedia network with experiential learning for youth, and we've trained thousands of students in media production, helped them to get careers in the industry and the communication arts, and workforce training for the public. And if you look at the BronxNet channels, it reflects the diversity of one of the most diverse places in the world, the Bronx, from the Bronx to the world on BronxNet's multi-platform channels. We provided experiential learning and career building internships, and you too, whether you're a student or heading up or working at a youth organization or at a school, we have partnerships that welcome our communities into these spaces, Nosotros Studios y sus Studios. We're helping to bridge technological divides since we've started providing public services, those 3 decades ago at BronxNet. When the Bronx was too often misrepresented, we provided education. And now we have media leaders in the industry making better decisions about how to report on the Bronx and to tell the stories of the people of the Bronx. We serve from 3 locations, including BronxNet's network operations at Lehman College, the BronxNet studios in the East Bronx at Mercy College, and a community needs assessment determined that the people of the South Bronx also need more access to BronxNet services. And on what was once a vacant lot, we've built the BronxNet Media and Technologies Studios at La Centrale with this Windows on the Bronx studio, an immersive media studio with extended reality production stages, innovation labs, learning labs, and more to help community members be a part of positive transformation and to really leverage the connectivity and the access and the media literacy and the digital literacy we provide. We welcome you, and we are meeting people where they are, whether you are a middle school, high school, or college student seeking tech skills and workforce training, whether you're a Bronx resident in need of access to technology and digital literacy, or you're looking to share your vision with the world, because we certainly help with journalism and arts and multimedia storytelling at BronxNet. Whether you're a low-income household or anyone without tech devices or proper connectivity, the elderly in need of basic computer skills, BronxNet is here with media and technology to meet the needs of individuals and people from many diverse backgrounds. We have a talented and passionate team here right now to answer your questions, including our Director of Community Affairs, Audrey Duncan, Director of Marketing, Natalia Perez, our Director of Creative Services, Walter Garacoa, and they're all here to answer your questions about how you can participate. We're offering the residents, organizations, and students of the Bronx and beyond professional level instruction in the journalism, arts, and multimedia storytelling, promoting digital literacy, and helping Bronxites make the most of their connectivity while contributing to positive transformation in this beautiful borough of the Bronx. Thank you, and keep Bronx strong and Empire State strong para siempre. Please welcome back Danielle Thornton from the Knowledge House.
Well, that was next level. Thank you, Max. And it is a beautiful space that we're in, so we really hope that you all get a chance to take a tour if you haven't already. I'm just very honored to be here, so thank you again to the entire BronxNet team for having us. So right now, I'm just going to go over a little bit of housekeeping. When you all came in, if you do have to use the restrooms, they are straight down the hallway to the right-hand side. But what we're about to do is a visioning activity. The idea is to go over to the table. We have some photos there. We want you to think of your ideal Bronx. So what does your ideal Bronx look like? It's a collage activity. It's supposed to be something fun. It's a mingling exercise as well. Also, that is optional, but it is encouraged. And also, we do have the food. So I know a lot of y'all came for the food too, so we are going to show you where to go over for the food, and then we can eat, we can mingle, and then we're going to come back here at around 1:30, and we will have our guest speaker, and then we will start the breakout discussions. So yeah. Absolutely. So right now, we're going to have Rose DeStefano from Bronx Community Foundation. She's going to do a quick introduction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much to the Knowledge House, amazing organization, and of course, BronxNet, so grateful for you. This feels a little bit loud, so let me just... So I'm Rose DeStefano. I am working with the Bronx Community Foundation. I got involved with the foundation in 2020, supporting them with their food insecurity work, and am now supporting them through their strategic planning process. So for those of you that don't know, the Bronx Community Foundation, again, started in 2020, but really as a relief effort. Obviously, the pandemic hit the Bronx really hard, right, on many levels. We know that. We feel that a lot of us experienced a lot of loss. And the Bronx Community Foundation was able to bring in a lot of new dollars that were specifically dedicated to the Bronx residents to support them through that time. Across the board issue areas, and I would say in very deep ways in the digital equity space. So I feel grateful to have been able to be on that journey with them. And now, you know, we're in a little bit of a different place. We know COVID is still here, but we also know that in order for us to really make true change in this Bronx and for all of us to walk away empowered with the kinds of jobs that are paying $80,000 plus, we have to look at and think about root cause issues. How are we really thinking about what the systems are that are creating the challenges that we're experiencing? So I want you to look over to this wall really quickly. You'll see there's this, we call our iceberg poster. What we've got here at the top is sort of like an area for you to chime in, write in what you feel are some of the most pressing issues. But if you look at the bottom in the blue section, there's, you know, what are the root causes of these issues? Our hope over this next month, we're engaging about 1,100 people across the Bronx, across ages, across cultures, and asking them these questions, both to help us think about how you understand the root cause issues, and then to help us understand your future ideal Bronx. So that's what the visioning is, exercises that Danielle was referencing. We're taking those vision boards, we're going to be analyzing them, and that's helping us to actually shape what the future of the Bronx Community Foundation is. We want to make sure that it is fully informed by what you believe, what you care about, and what your vision is in a world where there's, you know, no barriers. We don't have to think about money. What does that vision look like? So we're going to transition over to the vision board activity. So if you just give us a second, we're going to slide the tables in, the front row and the third row. If you can flip your chairs around, and we'll pop those tables in there so that we can start the activity. About 20 minutes in, we're going to have a little discussion, and then we'll transition over to eating food and all that other good stuff. So thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Hello. Welcome to all the folks that are joining us virtually. It's great to have you all here on this lovely Saturday. I want to begin by introducing myself. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications at the Knowledge House, and I am so happy to be here today. We have a special guest in the building. His name is George Nunez. He's the co-founder of Bronx Tech Hub, and he's doing so many great things here in the Bronx. So I want to welcome him. I want him to talk about his organization and what tech has meant to him. So please give him a warm welcome. Thank you, George.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Where's the energy? Perfect. Can everyone hear me? All right, perfect. Can we give a round of applause to BronxNet, Knowledge House, Bronx Community Foundation for hosting this lovely event? I'm so thankful and delighted, right? Because this definitely means a lot. This means the world to me. I've always wanted something like this where we saw a progressive Bronx, right? We saw a progressive borough. They usually like to talk about these other boroughs like Brooklyn and Staten Island, Manhattan, and Queens, but it's like, let's really focus on the Bronx. They wanted me to speak about my upbringing, so I guess I'll do my best, and we'll talk about how I ended up creating Bronx Tech Hub with a great friend of mine. So originally, I'm from the South Bronx. Grew up in public housing, bounced around a lot, dealt with homelessness and living in shelters, right? And I seen my mom come from a different country. She came from Honduras, right? So immigrant background, and I seen how hard she worked, and that always motivated me to pay it forward, right? Ended up going to high school, went to Eagle Academy for Young Men, an all-boys public high school, and that was the motivation because I seen mentors in my life see me go down a wrong path and say, hey, come here, come watch me speak at Columbia University. Hey, come here, come stay at my house over at New Rochelle to see my family. Hey, come take college courses at Georgetown University, and having that exposure, having that access and opportunities to new things helped me realize there was more to life than the South Bronx. And, you know, that allowed me to kind of pivot away from the violence or the drugs that was infested in my community. I went to Binghamton University, majored in finance, thought that was the be-all, end-all, right? Worked on Wall Street, did investment banking, and I built the skills in how I should value companies. But the thing was, I didn't like the corporate politics. I knew for me, personally, I was a very creative kid. I was forward thinking. And so I said to myself, all right, how can I pivot? And it wasn't until another mentor of mine who I met at Eagle Academy said, hey, how about you come work for me and value these startups, right? Like help these startups move forward. So I worked with him at Stratum Growth, and I got a chance to see, okay, these startup founders are working and building this company. They're getting access to entrepreneurship, but they don't understand tech and they don't understand product. And that's when the light bulb clicked, and I said, hey, let me get into product management. And from there, that's how I took a boot camp, and the rest was history. I ended up becoming a product manager as a contractor for a software development company called Skling Labs. And so that's how I kind of ran from there. But I always wanted to give back to the Bronx. I was just trying to figure out how, right? So I met a friend of mine named Danielle Nicholson. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here with us today. She's traveling, but her and I are both in tech. I'm a product manager. She's a angel investor. And so we looked at each other. We were like, hey, you and I are both from the Bronx. Like, how can we give back? How can we pay it forward? And that's when we created Bronx Tech Week. So we launched the first ever Bronx Tech Week in May. And we had a 4-day week where we were able to teach people about the different career paths in tech. Also had a youth high school hackathon, a pitch competition. I mean, you name it. I mean, some of the people were that are here today were able to attend the event. And we were like, all right, since we got that traction, let's go forward. Let's actually create a tech ecosystem, right? Let's create a tech hub. And so that's when we launched Bronx Tech Hub, right? A tech ecosystem where we want to build ecosystem in the Bronx, but also give resources to the Bronx. And so we got a chance to connect with the Knowledge House and the Bronx Community Foundation. I mean, Miss Piggy is here as well, Miss Ashanda, who's doing amazing things with kids and teaching them how to get certified in fixing iPhones. By the way, if you haven't already, she's having a gala event tomorrow, so definitely follow her on Instagram and definitely attend that event if you can. I will be there as well. But I just want to share some stats with you guys. So if you guys didn't know, 1/3 of Bronx households do not have computers or internet access, right? Manhattan, which is one of the boroughs, is home to 83% of tech sector jobs in the city, and the Bronx only has 1% of that, right, of that market share, just to think about it. And so when we really start to see the lack of access, the lack of opportunities in the Bronx, how can we continue those conversations? How can we move forward to impact our people, but also figure out, hey, you don't have to work in healthcare or education. And even though those are great fields, you can work in tech. You don't have to work in finance, you can work in tech. Hey, you don't have to travel to other boroughs. You can stay home, right? Work from home, work a remote job, or work at a company that's, building in the Bronx. And those are one of the things that we wanted to touch on in Bronx Tech Hub. We have 4 pillars. The first is education. The second is professional development. The third is tech advocacy. And the fourth is entrepreneurship. And we hope that you guys will continue to follow us, join us as well. Bronx Tech Week is something that's going to be annual. Bronx Tech Hub, we're definitely going to have future programming throughout the year. So please follow us, please stay tuned, and thank you all. Gracias por todo. And I'll hand the mic back to Danielle.
He's amazing, okay? So y'all get a chance to meet him one-on-one, talk to him, pick his brain, brilliant mind. So next up, we are going to switch over and hear from Connect All, Senior Vice President Josh Breitbart. He's going to give you all an overview of Connect All and what they're doing to impact the Bronx community, internet access and digital equity for all here in the Bronx. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you to the Knowledge House, Bronx Community Foundation, BronxNet, Bronx Tech Hub for bringing us together. Thank you also to the AV team of BronxNet, making this all happen. ASL interpretation. Really appreciate all the work that goes in to making these events happen. It's just incredible to be here with you all. I want to give you an overview of Connect All, but also just really appreciate the strength of the Bronx present here, the convening power of Bronx Tech Hub, the justice mission of Knowledge House, Bronx Community Foundation, and the visioning exercise that we've been doing in this room here, and the fact that digital equity is core to that. Not every community has a community foundation, and those that do, not all of them are seeing digital equity as an integral component of the future of their community. So that's such a strength here. And then, this facility that we're in, pre-grand opening, which is just a great privilege to be here and see what's happening. This community media center and the type of facilities and tools that are freely available to all Bronx residents is so critical, and it's meaningful to me because community media is actually how I came into this work. So that really the idea that people should be able to tell their own stories and not just tell them, but find the audience and be able to distribute those. And I think one of the things that is challenging about getting people online in communities where that's really limited is that the stories that are online before you get there aren't your stories. So it's so important to do that in parallel, is to make sure that when people from the Bronx who don't have connections right now go online, what they find is the voices of their neighbors, right? And the voices that tell those stories of the Bronx. And I think, see some of that up there. So hopefully what we're doing from Connect All can support that. I'm going to give you a little overview. but again, just to be here is such a great privilege. So as Danielle said, and thank you, Danielle, Joshua Breitbart, I'm the Senior Vice President for Connect All, so I'm lead the state's broadband office. Governor Hochul's Connect All initiative, she announced in the January 2022 State of the State address, included 5 signature grant programs. So that's a municipal infrastructure and assistance program, investing in public infrastructure, affordable housing connectivity, investing in new broadband infrastructure and service for affordable housing, adding retrofits, introducing competition, upgrades, rural broadband, making sure that every single location in the state has at least a connection to the internet. And there's still many locations throughout the state where there isn't a robust connection. And that, of course, is one component of digital equity. Connectivity innovation is not just it's technological innovation, but it's also business model innovation. It's really about driving the solutions to address the people who have been not served by the broadband market today. That's rural areas, that's increasing mobile coverage. It's also in communities like the Bronx, projects like what The Point has done in a community Wi-Fi project. Those are innovations because they're serving places that other companies and models haven't figured out to serve. So that's the full vision of connectivity innovation. And then the statewide digital equity plan and grant program. That is really, the focus of what we're doing today. And digital equity is really the guiding framework for all of these programs. And we're getting input on developing that plan from the whole state. At Connect All, we're really guided by 5 core principles, and we put these out to you to get your feedback, but also to encourage you and communicate to you that we are thinking expansively and holistically about digital equity. It's not just a connection. It's about how that connection is about equity, and not just equity in terms of who can consume internet, but who can, as I said, speak on the internet, who has the jobs, who has the ownership. Equity really runs top to bottom through that, and has to be driven by a local understanding of what equity is. Performance is really about the quality of the connection, making sure that it's all got to be high performing, resilient, reliable. Consumer choice. It is not just about competition. That's a critical part of it. It's also about, do you have the choice of internet service that works for you? Are you able to choose the products and the way of connecting that's right for you and your household and your community? Affordability, kind of speaks for itself, but that's such a key component of digital equity, making sure that it fits into the household budget. And then safety. Which is a critical component, that the experience of using the internet is one that is safe, secure, where you can be comfortable in how you act when you're online. Next slide. So as I said, we've been developing the state's digital equity plan with input from all across the state. We've been in every single region, and this, as I said, is really to inform the entire vision. And I also want to acknowledge that our partner in this, our federal funding partner and on-the-ground partner, is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration as part of the Department of Commerce. And our state federal program officer, Jody Vanell, is here. Jody, can you come up and just say hi to everybody and say a little bit about NTIA's role in this?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. They fed us, so we're a little bit lethargic, so let's get our energy up. I think it was a great segue, Josh. Just want to thank all of the partners that put this together. I won't go through all the names because I know we're short on time, but thank you, and thank you to BronxNet for this amazing environment that we're in right now that's cultivating this sort of learning experience. As Josh said, I'm Jody Vanell. I am the Federal Program Officer on behalf of of President Biden, on behalf of the U.S. government, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and a very long name, also known as NTIA. It's a little agency, or administration rather, that is tasked with $42 billion in connecting the entire United States and its U.S. Territories. And I'm so happy and proud to say that as of, I believe, June 26 or so, of that $42 billion, New York is allocated $664 million to do this amazing work that will be conducted by the Connect All office. So Josh and the team, myself, and all of the partners all around, you all are going to work together to make sure that we develop the best plan in New York so that it's ultimately approved by the end of the year, and that we can tap into this amazing amount of funds to bring connectivity together in New York, but also all of the digital equity parts to the puzzle. Just a quick story about myself. You're seeing me here, Jody Vanell, federal program officer. But really, I was a kid that grew up in Boston with, in a very similar neighborhood, working class, immigrant family. And it was not until my freshman year in college that I got my first device, right? I had to learn, catch up, and figure out how to be on the same path as everyone else who were way more connected than myself. So you're talking to someone who understands every single thing that we're doing in this room together to move the Bronx forward, to move New York forward. So it is with my passion and my pledge to make sure that we're fully connected and we're servicing all of New York. So thank you so much, and let's get it done in New York.
Thank you again, Jody. And also just do want to acknowledge my colleagues who are here, Rose and Nello, worked tirelessly to put together these listening sessions. Nazir Jeffries, part of our digital equity team. Kevin Lee is here. And also supported by our consulting team, HR&A Advisors. They're facilitating the online portion of this. Really appreciate all the work they do to support this effort. As part of this statewide engagement and as part of the way this is structured by NTIA, there's specific covered populations to engage with. And so some of the conversations are going to be very structured, and that's because, as Jody has said, to submit this plan, we need to make sure we hit all these marks and really are able to demonstrate input from not just these specific populations, but also on a regional balance across the entire state. And it's a helpful check on state broadband offices to make sure that you're not getting a top-down vision, but a really community-driven vision. And if we think about ways that infrastructure and other things have been rolled out in the past, like highways, there wasn't a real national community visioning process to talk about how that infrastructure was built, and I think probably the Bronx might look a little different if there was more consultation. Well, we're trying to do this the right way with great leadership at the federal level, and we're trying to do our part at the state level, and again, it's critical to have the partnerships here at the local level to be successful with that. Go to the next slide. So we've been doing, so far, we've had more than 1,000 people at these listening sessions in every region. That picture is from the one we did in Harlem. But, we knew we wanted to make sure that we deepen that conversation specifically in the Bronx. Bronx has its own story to tell, as you said, George. And, we've also done stakeholder focus groups. We've done a survey that's been able to have statistically accurate representation from around the state, which is honestly more important than total numbers of responses to surveys. And we continue to do online forums, focus on specific topics like workforce, civic engagement, access to government services. All of this is coming together in this state digital equity plan that we will put out for public comment in the fall. So again, there's another check on how we're doing, and really, that's the commitment from the federal state partners, is to make sure that this is a continuous process of engagement as we're entrusted with the federal and state funding that supports the governor's over $1 billion effort. So this is a timeline of opportunities for engagement. I won't go through every single component of it, but it just emphasizes what I just said, that we received the first planning grant in December. We've launched into this planning effort. We've been holding listening sessions, continuing here throughout the boroughs of the city. DETF is a digital equity task force that's working with state agencies and other community partners, including Knowledge House, to focus conversation on particular subject areas. And then ultimately, as I said, fall 2023, we'll put out the state's first ever digital equity plan, and then submit that to NTIA. That will then lead to the award of an additional pot of funding from the federal government for us to administer in accordance with that plan. And the focus of that, and as we think about this conversation, it's one-time funding from the federal government. And this is really a historic level of support, but it's one-time support. Easier to think about one-time support when you're building broadband infrastructure, but the challenge that we have to think about with the digital equity funding is also how do we build capacity that's enduring capacity? Because there's no done when it comes to digital equity. Technology changes, our physical abilities change. People come to our state from all over the world with different abilities and technology needs. So that's really going to be an ongoing process. So as we have this discussion, think about what are the needs, what are the barriers, what's the vision, and what is the way that we're going to arrive at a greater capacity. And I will say one of the parts of this is the coming together, right? Is this the ability for to act together. And so that's one of the reasons why we've been partnering with digital equity coalitions and partners all around the state to get this done. So this is what we're going to focus on in today's listening session. Again, we have a structure that we followed so that we can synthesize results from across the entire state, this incredibly large, wonderful, diverse state, so that we can present a coherent vision back to you all and everybody who's contributed to it. But thinking about what are the challenges and barriers to digital equity in your community, what are the priorities to address those barriers, to improve accessibility and cost of service and utilization, the use of service, and what are some of the existing programs, strengths that we can build on, and then also what are the gaps? What don't we have that this community might need that we can develop? And we're pulling together these assets from all across the state, and across the country, frankly. So we'll be able to identify other opportunities, and we'll also other communities might look to the Bronx and what can we learn? What can they learn and adapt from what's happening here and the strengths of what's here to apply to those other communities? And that's part of what the Connect All office can provide. So that's really what we're going to be doing, and when we go to these breakout sessions to have these focused conversations. So really appreciate your candor, energy, vision of contributing to that, and your collaboration with us as we shape this vision for the state and continue to work with you all throughout this multi-year process of implementing this progress towards digital equity. So thank you again to our partners, all the people who are doing this work. And Danielle, our MC, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Josh and Jody. I appreciate you both. Okay, so now this is the interactive part that we've all been waiting for. This is the focus discussion part. We're going to break out into 3 different rooms. There's going to be this room and then 2 classrooms out by where you all got the food. I think we're going to do each group of 10. So 3 groups of 10. Let me just give you all a number and come around real quick. And then based on your number, I'll break you all out. Okay? Okay, remember your number? welcome back, everyone. We have our virtual folks that are joining us again for the closeout. That's why we are all back in this room. We hope that you enjoyed the focus group discussions. I had a chance to float around and hear all the different things you all were discussing, and I really, really appreciate how open and honest and thorough you all were with answering the questions. So now we're going to get into a closing exercise where we're going to talk about some of the feedback that you all had in the breakout discussions. So my ask is that the facilitators share what they heard in their different rooms, and also note takers, you're free to speak about what you've heard as well. And then anyone else who wants to share and who's really passionate about the topics that were discussed, please feel free to raise your hands and share. So question number one, what did you hear today about local challenges and barriers to digital equity? Dan?
Hey, doing everyone.
Come on up.
Awesome. Excellent work, everyone. Thank you so much for everything that you brought to the table. We had a really robust conversation. So to answer this question, something that really figured highly in our conversation was safety. And people being aware of ways to safely navigate the internet, and that potentially preventing people from wanting or taking the steps necessary. So there's an education gap in privacy and safety education. There's also a gap in having stable internet that is affordable, that people can access. Some people reported that their buildings only had one internet provider that was very expensive and not reliable. We also talked about folks needing training on how to access different options. So for example, if someone has a privacy challenge and they have a concern, that one, they should be educated on Google and that it's it's your friend. It's not, some sort of thing that's going to steal your information. So really getting over that fear, but also giving people options. So there's other internet browsers and search engines that you can use. So those are some. So like with safety, it was also knowing the different resources that you can use online, knowing how to navigate the internet, knowing how to navigate various software, so I talked about safety and connectivity. We talked about the fact that phones tend to be more accessible, but folks also need laptops so they can do more things like trainings and things of the sort. So that's a little summary.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
No problem.
That's the participation I'm talking about. So thank you, Dan. And so one of the things I heard in my focus group was there seems to be a lot of challenges with devices, kids getting access to those devices that they need, especially because of the pandemic. That was really critical in creating that sort of a barrier for kids being able to do their schoolwork, and also be able to graduate. It really was hugely negatively impactful for those families that have those teenage kids that just didn't have access to the devices and softwares that they needed. So I just wanted to bring that up. But if anybody from Group 1 would like to share, please feel free. The next question is, what's working well in our borough to address these challenges and advance digital equity? So I'm going to leave the floor open to you all to share.
So from group 2, hi everyone, I'm beloved Karen. The purchase my book is called I Must Explain This by Hi everyone, I'm beloved Karen. You could purchase my book. It's called I Must Explain This by author beloved Karen. So one thing I question is, for example, with the free phones that we see on the streets often. Do you guys see that yet? Yeah. Okay, great. So I was concerned about the extent to which a problem is solved, like the percentage, for example. So you know how somebody wants to solve a problem? Is it being solved 100%, 100%, or 2%, or 5%? Because surely giving a person limited data to be able to access the internet, which we all know is part of our daily lives at this point, right? It's not something that we leave on a Monday only and we leave without it on a Tuesday, right? So I was questioning the extent to which problems are being solved current day in the Bronx in terms of technology that will not lead to more frustrations and parents wanting to like try to not take care of their children as a parent, right? So again, I'm just questioning the quality with pricing. Having gigabytes that a parent will then have to take her money or his money to then put more gigabytes into the process. And then when that person checks, that bill that was supposed to be free now turned into a $50 bill because they actually had to add more data to something that was technically supposed to be free. So how free was it really? The quality health-wise, like, are we getting like cheap bootleg things from China to give people brain cancers? Like, I'm just concerned about the fullness, the micro and macro perspective of things in terms of solving problems and for how long we want those things to be solved, right? So again, I know somebody said we could get things from the library in terms of borrowing a laptop, but is it only for 7 days? Like on the 8th day, we have to return it, or by the 7th day actually, and then what happens then? Can we ever borrow a laptop from the library again because we've maxed out our one-time chance? You know what I mean? So what types of solutions are we looking forward to manifesting without frustrating people already frustrated? That's my concern. Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah, so our group was great, they answered many questions, but one thing that came up several times in the conversation is that people felt like whether it's free or affordable, they wanted it to be of high quality. So even if let's say you had affordable, they didn't want like, the lowest level of affordable is a much lower quality than the high. They wanted to have a minimum standard to say that even if you have different tiers of something, that even the lowest tier is of such a high quality that you can benefit in for whatever purpose, for whether it's job searching or education, that you can do what you need to do, even at things that are tiered and have it at the lowest level. Another thing in terms of the things that people use the internet for, they kind of surprised me, which I shouldn't be surprised, but it was in addition to a lot of the traditional things. A lot of people said they're now using it for just finding really specific, not just finding local things that are happening in their neighborhood, but adding to that news, being able to go and say, the whatever site reported, this is happening now, or this just happened, but they are able to go on and add because maybe they're seeing it and they're able to say, give more details. So that was really interesting in our group. They had many more points, but that's what stood out.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Audrey. Lysandra, come on up.
Put my bag down for a second.
Take your time.
We had a phenomenal group, and I am just so, again, privileged and honored to be here with you all today. Listen, I think we all came out of there going, everyone, no matter what their age, is affected by technology and the need for access, right? Across the page. A couple of really interesting things came about access and the ease of access, right? So could our parks have Wi-Fi access and make things more amenable for folks to be out in, just out in public and being able to access free and good Wi-Fi? Could projects and housing, institutions provide that Wi-Fi and that connectivity when folks move in? They're all set up, ready to go with good quality access, right? Could there be more communal spaces where folks can access this technology and, it's always there and it's good, it's working, right? And just being able to really think about digital literacy and education for all, and making sure that, there are a lot of things that folks need to learn in school, and digital literacy and being able to think about your data, right? Like, there's so much stuff we're putting out into the world. And if folks are tested for other competencies, why can't there be a digital literacy competency included in that, right? So, there was just so much we spoke about, and those are just kind of some highlights.
Perfect. And so this last question is going to kind of be a segue between this feedback and then also a visioning activity that we're going to do, one final activity. So if you could go to the next slide. Okay, so this is how we're going to close out. We're going to imagine that it's 5 years in the future and think about some of the things that you all talked about in your discussion, some of the things that you really want and need, the changes that you want to see in the borough. The digital plan has been a resounding success. So just imagine some of those things are in fruition now. After some challenges, New York solutions are having a huge impact on the world in ways you'd never even imagine. So I want you all to take a minute to just think about, I just want you to take a minute to envision what the ideal Bronx looks like. It's equitable when it comes to digital resources, internet access. What does that look like? I want you to think and talk amongst yourselves and then be willing to share within the next couple of minutes. Oh, definitely. Okay. So everybody, because I know that we're way over on time, so I appreciate you all sticking with us today. But just a couple of hands, if anybody's willing to share, I'll take maybe one or two volunteers. Yes, please.
So one thing we discussed in our group and in group one was like reforming education, that there's a lot of need for like adult skills, life skills, and it'd be cool. So we're picturing like, let's say this digital plan works and it's 5 years into the future and we figure this out, like we figure out a way to take a system that's kind of broken and not try to fix it, but come up with something new. So I was picturing the headline like the Bronx did it first or something, where it's like we basically come up with because it's community driven, it's so community driven, it's actually going to be something that works and gets adopted, and then basically it ends up being an example for other places in the world that are struggling with digital equity to like model after, and like that was kind of the headline I pictured. Like we succeed, and because of how it's being done today and the way we're doing it now. So yeah,
Bronx did it first. I love that.
So I caught the very tail end, but
That's okay.
I'm a person that has a phone but doesn't have any service. So I depend on like Wi-Fi when I'm out in the street and stuff like that. And one thing I noticed is that they took the Wi-Fi off the bus. So my headline would say, Wi-Fi back on city buses. And then my 2 bullet points would be bus fare lowered and then ridership up. Because that makes sense to me. And that's it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Is that all we have? Perfect. One more?
Just I about the headline. I was just saying amongst our group that that to your point, to piggybacking off of that is that the biggest success was if Wi-Fi was free all over the Bronx or all over the city, and that people just didn't need to actually get get internet service if it was just available. That's what success would look like for me.
My title was Bronx becomes best borough, or Bronx becomes center of technology, or something like that, you know? And sorry. But yeah, bullet points would be like finally adding like Wi-Fi to like certain spots, or having a standardized sort of digital literacy requirement, or something along those lines.
Thank you all. So as we wrap up, I just want you all to think about the conversations that you had today, the connections that you made. Hopefully you all were able to exchange some contact information. This was supposed to be also a networking event as much as it was a Q&A, as much as it was an open discussion forum, so to speak. So just know that you being in this room is very, very important. Everything that you all have talked about, I mean, that's why we had the note takers in the room, and we were able to take some really important notes that are going to be shared with our government officials. And so now it's their responsibility to do the work, listen to your voices, and hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, even sooner than that, we can see the effects of the discussions that we had today. So thank you all today, and grab some more food. Follow us at the Knowledge House. Thank you all.